Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network.
'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven.
A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at uenradio.com.
Stay that way because I like it like that.
Hey, welcome back to the Larry Yates Show. Hey, thanks everybody. Hey, we got some, look, this is going to be a little bit more fiery and exciting today. I just want to appreciate everybody for supporting this How Do We Get Here kind of show. And, there's so much been happening in the news and stuff. And actually, I believe that once we get into the kind of the meat of this, we might be able to tie in some of this stuff, talking about our president and what's going on in the country and a whole bit. But I want to thank you guys. I got some really wonderful email and text messages about this theme that I'm doing now, these series of How Do We Get Here. Now remember, if you want me to do a show on how do we get here, and the mistreatment of women, the mistreatment of African Americans, the mistreatment of the gay community, whatever your topic is, but let it be of substance. I don't want to do a bunch of crappy shows. You may not like what I say, but it has to have some substance to it. But I'm not closed-minded to having a little fun either. But what I want to say to some of you is that when we did the show, and I'm not going to recap you everything that we did, everything we talked about, and I'm not a Bible thumper, and it's just so fortunately that the stories that has come to me of how we got here, the mistreatment of this person or that group or this group, so much of it went back to three elements of what I call the three elements, the three pillars of humans' life, and that's their culture, their environment, and their religion. And so, but with the mistreatment of homosexual, in order to address it, I have to go back to the source, and the source happens to be in religion, and especially here in America, the Christian religion and Christianity. And so when you wanted to address it, then that forced me to go into the Bible. And if I'm going to address it in the Bible, I'm going to go back to the most important or the most widely spread Bible on the planet, which is the King James Version. And going through how did we get to the point where we're mistreating the gay community under the King James Version of the Bible. So I'm taking up for what we did last show. So I won't go through all of the details here, you know what I mean? So I'm just bringing you back up, bringing you up to par here. And so I have to remind people that what I'm going to say is not going to sit well with some people. And I get that. And I've had a few of you to say a few things that let me know that this was uncomfortable for you. And remember, I am not trying to get you to believe nothing I say. In fact, it would be better for me if you didn't believe anything I say. It would be better for me that if I can encourage you to do your own research, do your own critical thinking. I just want to be thought-provoking so that maybe that once we start to do our own research then and see for ourselves the historical tracking, the breadcrumbs, follow the freaking breadcrumbs to the past and see how do we get here. And this is what I'm doing. And so people ask me, well, Larry, where do you get your information from? I started with old encyclopedias. I've been doing this for many years. And then with the old encyclopedias, I have old dictionaries. And then I match up the words, phrases, and storylines with the old dictionaries and the old encyclopedias before I go and Google stuff. Because a lot of the stuff you Google now, if you don't know the antiquity way of phrasing, you're going to get a watered down truth. So you need to go and look at all this. And then I love Carl Jung. I love Dr. D, Dr. B. Donahue. I love. I listened to hundreds of lectures over the years. So those of you that are familiar with some of these names, whether it's Alan Watts or Joseph Campbell and all this, I've been listening to these guys' lectures for many years. Elijah Muhammad, Minister Farrakhan. So I don't get information from just one well. But if I'm going to go and talk to you about something that is suffering because of religion and Christianity, I'm not going to go to these books. I'm going to go exactly to where you and your preachers and Christianity and the church has gotten this from. And so in moving forward here, I want you guys to be a little patient with me because a lot of you say, well, Larry, just get to the story. And I will, but I have to address some of these things because everybody's not ready for this. I've already lost friends behind coming out and telling the truth as I have done the research. But that you're going to do that. And you'll find some of this stuff, you're not going to be able to talk to your friends and relatives about some of this stuff. It's just a fact. But anyway, I had a couple of people that asked me and said, Larry, if Paul in the Bible, Paul wrote the Bible, Paul said that these things of Abraham and the life and the stories of the Bible is allegories. And Jesus said he spoke in parables. And I think even in Palm, when God said, I spoke in parables and metaphors. And so someone asked me and said, well, Larry, be a little patient with us and talk to us about allegories and explain what they are and the differences and the whole bit. And so those of you that understand, just be a little patient because we're all learning. I'm learning. I'm just learning myself. But let me tell you, I'm a life coach. I've taken the blessings of my life. I've traveled around the world. Not only did I do these studies on my own, I've listened to lectures and a whole bit, but I've traveled around the world. And I've traveled around the world the way most people would never get to travel around the world. I've been to Egypt. I've been to Bahrain. I've been to Saudi Arabia. I've been to the Middle East. I've been around the world quite a few times, to be honest with you. And so with my studies, I also put it together with going and sitting with tribes in Africa and natives in Malaysia and China. So I have put a lot of energy in this and trying to bring these stories to the light, and from Hinduism, Buddhism, you name it. But let me get to this for some of you that ask me about allegories and metaphors and parables. I'm a life coach. And let me give you an example as a life coach and how we use metaphors, parables, and allegories, just like Paul said. As a life coach, I would ask you a question about where are you in your career. Let's say you want to write a book. You want to open a business. Then I say to you, well, let's get in this helicopter trip. And we're going to rise up 5,000 feet in this helicopter. Do that with me right now. So I show you. And as you are up in this helicopter, 5,000 feet above the ground, and I'm trying to help you figure out which way to go with your career as a life coach, I say to you, John, look to your left, 5,000 feet down there, and that's point A. And then there's a path from point A. Now in this helicopter 5,000 feet above, I want you to look down to your right, and that's point B. That's where your goals are. And as a life coach, and I'm coaching you through looking down at the path, now tell me where you are at point B, where you're starting from 5,000 feet above. Now you look at this path, and then I'm going to ask you to look down at point A to point B and ask you to tell me, what do you see getting in the way of you reaching point B. Now, we're looking at this helicopter, imaginary, visionary, and then we're looking down at point A and point B in the path. And then I ask you, what have you done to slow yourself down? And you say, well, Larry, I made a bad decision. Then I said, well, in this path, you cut off your nose to spike your face. That's a parable. The helicopter is a metaphor. And then in this race from point A to point B, that you're in this helicopter looking down at it, and then I say you've cut off your nose to spike your face. That means you made a bad decision that didn't come out in your best interest. And now I ask you, then I do an analysis. I say, well, now you take the turtle and the hare, the race. Everybody know about the turtle and the hare, the turtle and the rabbit, the old story. And so the turtle ends up winning the race, getting to part B before the rabbit. Now, the rabbit was built to run, not the turtle. The turtle got his whole life on his back. He got his bathroom, his kitchen, the old boy got his bedroom, and, he got his closet and all that shit. He got it on his back. But he wins the race in this story. That's an allegory. Because in the story, it's meant to teach you that just because you was born with a particular skill does not guarantee you winning the race in life. But even though you may not have been born for the race, but if you apply yourself like the turtle, you put your focus in and you put your effort in, then once you get to the race, then you can finish and win the race in life. That's what the turtle and the hare is trying to say. So it was no real turtle that outran a daggone rabbit. It's one of the fastest animals on the planet. It's just the rabbit didn't apply himself. That's when you and I have the skills to be a doctor, the skills to be a lawyer, the skills to be a great basketball player, but we don't want to apply ourselves. We don't want to do the math. We want to go out and party. Then we become the hare. But then those that apply themselves, even though they was not born for it. And I look at some of the most fascinating in this, and I was looking at some clips of the Olympics. I think it's the Junior Olympics where the children are mentally challenged, and I see them with mentally challenged, physically challenged, and these kids, they put so much into finishing the race. And I'm telling you, I'm bawling, man. I'm like crying. And I thought about this story. Is that sometimes we have all the skills, but we won't finish the race because we don't apply ourselves. So in this story, I just use allegories, metaphors, and parable. The parable is you were not in a helicopter with me looking down at your life, but I did help some of you look. I know, I've been there. And you didn't actually cut your nose off to spite your face. That just means you made a decision that didn't work in your best interest. You were not the rabbit and the hare. There was no rabbit and hare in a race. That was you and I. The story was to tell us to apply ourselves. So these metaphors, these parables, and these allegories is the way Jesus told his stories. This is the way Paul said that these stories are allegories. And so in the stories that we have clinched on to mistreat a group of people that is considered homosexual, called homosexual. Now, there's a lot of political words to use. So those of you who are the gay and lesbian homosexual community, don't beat up on me for not knowing all the right things to say, but your best interest is at heart. And I won't go through the Bible and tell you where to find these things, but I think it's Leviticus. I got it written down here somewhere. But you got the computer now. Just look up where it says it's an abomination for man to sleep with man. These are allegories. And see, in the ancient philosophy for where this came, man meant mind, carnal mind. It didn't mean male without female in the sense of the physical. It was talking about your mind. And when you live in a carnal mind and you live and live into your desires, your ego, your anger, that is male sleeping with male. And because men and women have both male and female principles, that it doesn't matter whether you're a woman or not. The mind, the male in these ancient philosophies represented the mind. And so we have used that to condemn the gay community. That's not what it had anything to do with. It had to do with you living below a spiritual self. When you don't allow the spirit of the female emotion, which represent emotion and higher consciousness and female, to marry with your conscious mind. And therefore you spend your life walking in a carnal mind that is catering and sleeping with your physical desires, where you're living from the gonads down in the man and the ovaries down in the female. That is what that passage was talking about. It's an allegory, folks. It's not real. That didn't happen. And then you go to the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. So I'm going to rush through and break this down to you a little bit. And where we use the story of Sodom and Gomorrah to condemn the gay community again. Well, these two angels came to Sodom and Gomorrah a lot. And we talked about this last week, so I'm going to go through this because I want to get to an ending of this. And at the end of this, it's going to shake a few of you. But just bear with me. And the two angels and Lot, Lot standing at the gate and the two angels at the gate. Lot is you and me. It is us. And when it said that he had a veil, the veil just represents that you're clouded. Your mind is so clouded that you can't quite see through to pass this terrible emotional state of mind that you're in. That's what the veil means. Just that you really can't see it. So when the ancients and philosophy was talking about these emotional concepts, they gave names to them so that we can understand them, but not take them literal. So Lot couldn't see. But the two angels that came into Sodom and Gomorrah to enter into his house, those angels are a spiritual consciousness that comes in double fold. It hits you doubly, back up, to let you know that you have angels, a higher consciousness that you can reach into, that you don't have to live in your lower mind. And so when Lot, you and I, are at the door or at the gates of our life, at the gates of these troubles, these troubling situations that happens to us, that we have that inner self that is trying to show us that we can make a better choice. We got this angel inside of us, the higher level of consciousness, that if we just allow them in to our home, our mind, then we can get out of our lower self, which is Sodom. That's what Sodom is, your lower consciousness. Now, then the story says Lot has two daughters. Now, you got the man, he's a man of God. God. And this is what your preacher tell you. But then the two angels enter the house. Now they want those men in there. And Lot says, no, don't mess with these men in here. Take my virgin daughters. Now, what kind of man is going to send his virgin daughters to out in the streets with a bunch of drunken sex maniacs and fools out there? Ask your preacher why he would even tell you that a man of God would do something like that. Because that's not what it meant. You see, daughters, and I want you to hear this, daughters in spiritual consciousness represent, daughters represent the desires that springs up out of your emotion. But they're the divine spirit that spring up out of your emotion. It is the divine spirit of the feminine aspect of your consciousness that has beautiful, fresh, new idea that is trying to come together with a father figure called the mind. And then, in the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, so I'm rushing through this, so you guys go and look this thing up on your own, because you got to start to think about this stuff. And then after that, the Lot and the angels tell Lot to get out of her, get out of Sodom and Gomorrah. That is the higher level of spirit when you decide that you're not going to beat your wife, when you decide you're not going to drink yourself to death, when you decide that because you lost that job, you don't have to hate everybody, you don't have to live in anger, you can get out of that lower consciousness, that lower anger that you just went through, get out of that Sodom and Gomorrah and head to the mountain, which means a higher level of consciousness. Then so he took the wife and his daughters. Well, wife in ancient philosophy, even that means the spiritual, emotional side of you. And this is why they confuse the spiritual, emotional side of you, not sleeping with the man, the carnal side of you, and they call it man sleeping with man. Because it was mind on mind. That's what that meant. And so, another part of that story kind of strange, and I had someone to call me and say, well, Larry, explain to us Lot's emotion, the woman wife turning to salt. Salt was a preservative, and salt was more valuable than gold in some places because it preserved food. That's what it was there for. And when you leave your lower self, you get out of your lower consciousness, and you try your best to get to a higher spiritual connection within yourself, then the emotions and the desires to go back and live at the lower self again. You walked away from the opioid. You got yourself off of crack, the Sodom and Gomorrah. You got yourself off of just drinking yourself to death, your Sodom and Gomorrah. And now you're headed to a higher level of consciousness, and the spirit side of you, which is the feminine principle inside of you, turn and look back. And so when they said, when the Bible and all that said, well, she looked back over the plains. Well, the plains in ancient philosophy means confusion. That's what it meant. And so now the emotion is looking back and it's confused. Well, I kind of like it when I was on the streets out there slinging drugs. I kind of like it when I was being promiscuous in Sodom and Gomorrah. I kind of like it when I was being a drunk. It felt good. And that is the emotion turning. And I disagree with some of the philosophers on this, because some of them say that the turning in salt, and when she looked back, it was to preserve from doing evil forever. I disagree with that because I think we'll forever have these struggles. And they're okay to have those struggles. I think we'll forever be torn against doing good and evils, because there's nothing that has one side to it. There's not a page that you can't get a piece of paper that just have one side to it. You can't get a coin that has one side to it. Nothing in life has one side to it. And that doesn't exist. So you got to have that opposite. So I think that when the emotion turn and want to go back to the old habits, and we all have done it. Come on, We've all done it. You get mad at the woman, you messed up and you blaming her for it. Okay, I know we all do it. But you get mad and you get mad at your woman and you slam the door and you rush out and you go to the bar down there and you take a drink and you see that little pretty young thing sitting over there, oh man, I'm pissed off at her because she burned the eggs or whatever. You'll think of a reason now. Oh boy, we'll think of a reason. We're looking at this young hot thing. Here, women, you do the same thing. And then we're giving ourselves all those excuses because I'm pissed off at him. He didn't wash the car. Whatever reason you're going to think of a reason. But then those temptations start creeping in, huh? Those temptations start creeping in. Hell, I'm getting a little tempted and my tide tongue in this here. But that is the emotion and the salt, because that battle will forever be preserved in you. You will forever have to fight that battle of not slipping off the wagon, as we call it, or falling off the wagon. And that's basically what that turning to the salt was about. And so now Lot and his family, they get up in the mountain. And the story gets kind of kind of crazy right here. And they get into this dark cave. And the dark cave, what the story is trying to tell you is that we go into ourselves. We go into the darkness of ourselves, whether it's meditation or prayer, whatever you choose, meditation, prayer. And, when you go to sleep at night, your mind go crazy with all of this stuff because you're in a dark place. But the meditation now, Lot is in a dark place now where you are leaving Sodom and Gomorrah behind. And you feel good about it. Now you can rest within yourself. And so, then the daughters, one daughter get the boy drunk. She get old Pop's drunk now. I mean, think about this. These are people like my friend Bill D says. These are the people of God that God done saved them from Sodom and Gomorrah. This was the only holy man in Sodom and Gomorrah. But he was willing to dump his daughters out on the street for a bunch of sex maniacs. And then when he get up there in the cave, one daughter get him drunk and she go in and rape the guy. I mean, these are people of God. I mean, come on. And one of them lied, So there are no other cities of men on earth. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? There was no other men, no other city on earth. And then she gets the old boy drunk, right? Old boy plastered. I mean, he's bent, according to the story now. And he don't know nothing what's going on. And then she go in and lay with old Pop. She got him, hooked up with him, banged him. Now, if you don't get mad at me, I didn't put this in your Bible. She banged him. She had some fun now, according to the story, because she came back and told her sister, said, look here, old Pops, I pecked old Pop last night. He said, you might have a job is over there laughing. And so she said, I'm just, I wasn't there, I'm just imagining. He did? You did? How was it? Well, girl, you need to go see for yourself. Pops, that boy got it going on. So then the second daughter go in there. What she do? She bangs old Pop. Now, I'm thinking Pop laying in there with one eye open. I'm just telling you now. He all drunk and shit. I mean, I'm sorry to say shit, But I'm sorry, man. You got to look. It's in your Bible. I didn't put it there. And boy laying over there with one eye open and don't know nothing now. Man, these are two virgins. Pops wake up next morning. Guess what? He still don't know nothing. He don't know nothing. But folks, what that means is that when the carnal mind Leave the lower self. When you get out of all of that madness and you go to a higher self, to the mountaintop, into the cave, you go into the cave, into the darkness of yourself, and you pray, you meditate. The daughters that is the divine spirit that rises up from the emotions have now come together with a spiritual mind which is considered a father. The spiritual self. The carnal mind has now gone, and now the daughters of the emotion has come together with the carnal, with the spiritual mind, which is called the Father. It didn't mean that the old man sitting there and got drunk. And what you remember in a lot of these stories, you know, when Noah came out of the boat, what did he do? They were up in the mountain now. He got drunk. You know, the wine that these girls gave him. Jesus, a new wine. And what that means is that once you leave your lower self and you get into a higher level of consciousness, you get high on it. And many of you have said it. You jump up, you go outside today, you got that new job, you say, how you doing, sister? Sweet, I'm just high today. I feel good. You're drunk on it. And just like a little kid that gets his toy that he or she wants for Christmas. And you look at him and say, oh my God, that boy done lost his mind. Look at my son. He done lost his mind. He acting like a little old drunk man because he's overly excited. Because he's activated the pituitary gland, and the pituitary gland become the master of all the glands in your body that causes the adrenaline gland to secrete all of these hormones, and it just starts to bang up inside you, and you're high on it. And then in this story, what they did was, there's something that was really fairly clever, I think. She had two sons. I mean, there was two sons born out of this coming together of the father and the daughters. And this is very interesting because I want you to pay attention to these names now. You have to remember, Lot actually means veil, that is hidden from us. So we're in a cloudy state of mind. And if I'm not mistaken, you guys have to go and look this up for me, but one of the sons was named Moab that came out of this birth. And Moab means desired land. That's what it meant. And desired land is the same thing as earth. And earth in ancient philosophy and spirituality means mind. He had a desired mind. He got the mind. You and I got the mind that we desire. Because our spiritual daughters from our emotion came together with the spiritual mindset, because we are drunken in this new mind, the renewing of the mind, just like Jesus said, come to a renewing of the mind. And then out of that, we birth new ideas, new thoughts, new consciousness, and we develop and bring together new and desired land, which means you can plant new seeds in your mind. You can have new, energetic, positive thoughts that you no longer have to live in Sodom and Gomorrah. And I think the second son, I think is Bonami. And I think, go and look it up, Bonami, but that means the son of my Kenda, which means the son of my spirit. That the new line, the new land is your mind with the higher level of consciousness and a higher level of spirit that you can move on farther with new ideas and new concepts and continue to grow in life. It had nothing to do with homosexual. The people that's knocking on the door was all those freaking voices in our heads that tell us that we can't do, that we can't grow, that we can't get there, that we don't know where to go, we don't know how to get there. Those are voices in your head that tells you that when you come up with a good idea and the voices say, no, well, you can't do that. The people, the knocking on the door and trying to get to the men inside there was the lower part of you constantly knocking at the carnal side of your mind, stopping you from exploring new possibilities. And I'm going to give you an example of someone that lives like this. From the Leviticus, man sleeping with a man, to Sodom and Gomorrah, Donald J. Trump lives in Sodom and Gomorrah. Donald J. Trump, he's a narcissistic, arrogant, egotistical maniac. And he lay down and sleep with himself internally, where his feminine, spiritual principle has been completely removed. That all he does is live within his ego, his fears, his anger, his hatred, his desires. Donald Trump is the perfect example of living in Sodom and Gomorrah. Not the gay people in your community, not the gay people that's in your family. Folks, stop. I'm not going to tell you not. Let me back up. Consider doing your research and what these stories meant. Because if we continue this foolishness, when we see Sodom and Gomorrah in all of us, and I want to show you this now. I want to show you something that was about consciousness. And I'm going to use your Bible, so don't nobody say I jumped up last night and broke in the house and wrote the stuff down. I'm looking at my time here. I got 15 minutes. And so when you look at the actions of Donald Trump, this is what the story of Sodom and Gomorrah was trying to tell us to not do, because of the hell and destruction that we lead around us when we live in total masculinity within our lower self and our physical mind and our carnal mind. And we do not let the daughters of the spirit of our emotion come into us, that we can make better decisions and be better people. And now, I want to do something here, and I wrote this down. And when you guys get a chance, look here, I'm going to take my pretty man glasses off and going to put on these reading glasses. So I don't want nobody laughing at me. Don't be sending me no note saying, oh, man, I thought them were reading glasses. No, those are my good-looking man glasses. I thought I'd say that. But anyway, I want you guys to look at this. I want you to write this down. Revelations 11 and 8. Now, I just told you, Paul said these things was an allegory. I just told you that Jesus said, I speak to them in parables, right? And let me show you something that, go take this to your preacher now. In Revelation 11 and 8, and it said, there will be dead bodies laying in the streets. Spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt. Huh? I ain't put it there. See, all these years you've been thinking some city burned down there because a bunch of gay people knocking at the door to get in had a couple of men. It has been an allegory all the time. It is not reality. other than what's going on inside you and me. And I will read this again. Revelation 11:8. There will be dead bodies laying in the streets. Spiritually, is called Sodom and Egypt. And I have to break in a little thing right here, and let me tell you something to help you understand some of the hidden messages here. When you see man many times in these ancient writings, the Bible, Hinduism, Judaism, Islam, when you see man, it came from the word mind. It's your mind. And then when you see Egypt, Egypt represents the lower self. That city, beautiful ancient city, is named Kemet. So when you see Israel, it's higher consciousness. When you see Egypt, it is lower consciousness. So right here, when it says that spiritually it is called Sodom and Egypt, that's what it's trying to tell you. And so, and then I my time is to keep up with the time. I'm going to move on to something. Then we're going to get to something here that some of you is going to slowly start to be a little bit uncomfortable with. And I want to make sure I find it because I'm not a Bible thumper, guys. And so I try to do my research the best way that I can. But I use the Bible because this is what you have been using to mistreat the gay community. This is what you've been using to deny your sons and daughters, where these young men and women and young girls and boys are committing suicide. And they're God's children. But you using the very words of God, you think, to condemn them. And I'm telling you, no. This is not what it meant. It did not mean what you have been taught. And go and challenge your preacher. Go do your research. Don't take my word for nothing. I'm not trying to tell anybody how to think. So I got to get to this part right here. In ancient Greek and Rome, the gay people was called eunuchs. I think that's going to be spelled E-U-N-U-C-H. E-U-N-U-C-H. And the Greek law that allowed eunuchs to adopt and inherit land. But see, it was the church that said we cannot allow people that's not having children to control money and land. And it was the church started the demonizing of the gay and homosexual community, because before that they had every right. Now the ancient said Greece, and the Greek law said there was three kind of eunuchs. There was a eunuch that was made by man where they just smashed his smashed his balls and then cut him up and all that kind of stuff so that he could watch over their harem. And that way they had all them young virgin harem. I ain't want no young guy sitting there was winking at his end of his harem. So they castrated him and appointed him guardians over the harems. And that's a eunuch that's made by man. And then there was eunuch in that same category that was diseased. And so they put the eunuch that was made by man and eunuchs that was had disease in the same category. Then there was eunuchs that that decided to be eunuchs for the sake of the church, to be priests, to vow celibacy. Well, they vowed against sex, but they chose not to have sex, and they chose not to have kids. But most of them did it for the church, and they worked in the church as priests. And we know how that turned out. But anyway, and there's a third eunuch under the Roman law, I mean, remember, this is 1,000 years ago now. And there was a natural eunuch under Roman law. This was before the Bible came into existence. And this was during the Bible days and time, but this was before the Bible came into existence. And the natural eunuch had every right as an ordinary citizen. They could buy land, they could own businesses. And in fact, the Roman law said that they had a duty to act and work like every other man or any other man. And this was in the digest of the Lex Julia book, laws of digest 50.16.128. You can look that up in the Roman and Greek law. Now, the reason I say this, some of you are going to be a little bit uncomfortable with this. But you want to talk about Jesus, you want to talk about Yahshua the Messiah, you want to talk about this and that and da-da-da. Well, I got one for you now. Now, I didn't write this. I just told you what the Roman and Greek law said about eunuchs. Go look it up yourself. Don't take Larry's word for nothing. But now let's see what Jesus said. Let's see what Yahshua the Messiah said about eunuchs, gays, homosexual. And I hear these preachers, well, God never said anything about homosexual. Jesus never meant anything about homosexual. You are a lie. You just don't want to tell people that Jesus, Yahshua the Messiah, whomever you want to address him as, did. Now, here's what he said now. This is why I don't want you guys calling me because I didn't write this. In Matthew 19 and 12. I want you to look this up. In Matthew 19 and 12. Let me put on my reading glasses again because I'm going to stumble over this, but I want you to see it yourself. We just discussed what eunuchs the Romans said. Talked about the eunuchs and that they could marry, the natural could marry. But look what Jesus said in Matthew 19 and 12. Number one, he said, there be eunuchs which have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven. Huh? Jesus saying this. It's eunuchs that made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven. And then he said, and there are eunuchs which was made eunuchs by castration. They're castrated. But now here's the one right here that your preacher don't want to talk about. Jesus said, there are some eunuchs which were so born from their mother's womb. He that is able to receive it, let him receive it. Huh? I didn't put this there. I'll read it to you again. Eunuchs are the homosexual of today. And in Matthew 19 and 12, he said that there was eunuch that was made eunuchs for heaven. By man. And he said there was eunuch that chose to be eunuchs for the sake of heaven. And there was eunuch that was born of their mother's womb. He that is able to receive it, let him receive it. That's Jesus saying you can take it or not. That is in your Bible. So before you go out and Bible thump and throw in your people's face, the gay community face, you think about what your own Jesus said, and the one that wrote the King James Version, the Bible, was gay himself, and he admitted it. He didn't even hide it. He was in love with the Duke, and he said it. He didn't hide it. So I really Jarvis, how much time I got here? I really appreciate you guys giving me this opportunity to dig into some of the philosophies, some of the ancient spirits that we have, and that we've touched upon. And like I said, I'm not trying to make anybody believe anything that I say. And in fact, I don't want you to believe nothing Larry say. You do me a big favor if you go and do some research with me. Become my partner. Come up with a story that we can do together, and we can do our research together. Hit me up on Facebook and let me know what story you would like for me to cover. But in covering these stories, I do the best research, and I have to have proof. I don't want to know how you feel. I'm not being funny, but don't call me or send me no information about I feel. No, that don't mean anything. Give me data. Give me historical paperwork. Show me what you have, and let's work on something together, because maybe you can enlighten me. I'm sure you can enlighten me. And just maybe I can encourage you to be thought-provoking. And so when you look at these stories, Leviticus and a man laying down with a man had nothing to do with a physical human being sitting down and having sex. And when you look at the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, it was about you and I, and we have all experienced Sodom and Gomorrah within us. And some of you right now is experiencing it. Where you've lost your job. You don't know where to turn. Where you've lost the person that you love by death or by divorce. Where you've lost all your money, you lost your home. And then you've given up. You're giving up. You're drinking yourself to death. You're smoking yourself to death. You're living in complete anger. And then there are those that are not having monetary problem, that is living an egotistical life, that think you are so much better than everybody else, that you can't help anybody, that you can't reach out and touch anybody else. You're living in Sodom and Gomorrah. You have those men knocking at your door trying to get to your carnal mind because you're not open. You're living in Sodom and Gomorrah. Look at Donald Trump, Kellyanne Conway. I can't think of the speaker, the young lady that she lies so much I can't even think of her name. The Jarvis, what is her name? The one, the spokesperson for the White House. Sarah Huckabee. I don't even call people liars anymore. I said, well, you just doing a Sarah Huckabee. You just a Sarah Huckabee. But these people are in Sodom and Gomorrah, but it's within them. It's not. It doesn't have a address to it. Sodom and Gomorrah goes where you go as long as you are confused, living in anger, living in hatred, living in racism. You see, we have been sold the story, but we haven't been told the story. So instead of just buying stories, don't let people sell you a story. But it's okay to let them tell you the story. And in this way, do your research, boys and girls, men and women, and then that way you believe in what you come to the conclusion for yourself. But we don't have a right to mistreat people because of the color of their skin. We don't have a right to mistreat women. We don't have a right to mistreat anybody because of your spiritual belief. That's okay. And we don't have a right to mistreat the gay community because of some misguided teaching of some of these rotten-hearted preachers and some of these misguided preachers that don't even know what they're reading when they stand before the pulpit and reading it to you. They're selling you a story. They're not telling you a story. And I think we've come to the close of this. And all I want to say is, don't believe anything I say. Don't trust me. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm trying to encourage you to be more thought-provoking so you can enter into that space of a higher consciousness for yourself. And that way, you can write the story. This is Larry Yates, and remember, a nation can rise no higher than it elevates its woman. Peace. See you next week.
Baby, baby, just a lucky